An all-out war amongst superhumans will determine the fate of the world. Today, we cover Kingdom Come. Welcome to the Oblivion Bar, a safe haven for all DC comic fans. I'm your host, Khalil Hill, and today we dive headfirst into the alternate reality story that is Kingdom Come, written by Mark Waid with art by the legendary Alex Ross. So, before we get too deep into this, Ethan, go ahead and set the stage for us. What is happening in this book?
Sure. So, this is an Elseworld story. This one specifically takes place on Earth 22, which is one of the many Earths in the multiverse. We'll get into that later. What we're basically dealing with here is a world where all the original heroes have aged past their prime, and many have retired, including Superman, who has taken seclusion by himself because he's, sort of butthurt at the world.
Yeah.
We'll also cover that later. Now, their spawn, there's a bunch of young heroes who aren't exactly heroes that have taken over the mantles of the older ones, and some of them have new names because there's quite a few. And basically, they have the powers, but they don't have the morals of their predecessors. And so they often don't really care about civilian casualties. They've already killed all of the supervillains of old, brutally.
Yeah.
And now they just fight each other out in the world for fun without really a care for who or what gets hurt in the process.
Yeah, it's all-out chaos, and really, it makes you think how much blame there is on certain superheroes, specifically in Superman, because he's been off in solitude. And we have this new generation of heroes that just weren't trained properly. So how much fault would you put on Superman for standing idly by?
I definitely think he has some blame. I think I kind of understand where he's coming from, in that it feels like humanity kind of turned their back on him, and that there's the whole thing with Magog, and he's essentially a murderer, and they just straight up acquitted him. The humans acquitted him. So Superman's like, well, if you're going to do that to me, then he peaced out, which I think is very un-Superman-like. If you are, the standpoint, the pinnacle of what everyone strives to be, and you turned your back on everyone just because they disagreed with you on something. And I think as a result of that, he definitely needs to shoulder some of the blame for how the last 10 years have progressed.
I mean, I was going to say not that much blame, but Robbie, you kind of make a really good point. He has the powers to help. He didn't. He said bye. And at that point, I mean, you're a bystander and you have the ability. So I kind of want to quote Dr. Ellie Wiesel in the fact that silence helps the oppressor, not the oppressed.
Good quote.
Yes.
Wow. Thought we were supposed to read comic books.
I'm sorry, it's what popped into my brain.
All right, well, I thought I had something smart to say. I think it's just going to be a normal thing to say now. I think the Spectre himself said something, that what Superman did that was so bad is that he failed to realize how big of an effect that he had on others, how big of an idol he was for everyone else in the community. Mm-hmm. And that was where he faltered, really. Complacency is just as bad as the crime.
Yeah, I like this. This is some good conversation we got going here, guys. But before we go into the rest of this book, we need to talk about something else that's really good that we're sipping on right now. So, Joe, what did you bring for us to drink today?
I brought another Rock House special.
Yeah.
Because they're sponsoring us.
Thank you, Rock House.
The Key Lime Gose. It has a 4.6 ABV and 10 IBUs. So very low bitters, very low alcohol content. But hot damn. This tastes like key lime pie. And at first I was like, key lime Gose. I was like, oh, I bet this tastes pretty good. And I drank it, and then I stared at it like, where have you been all my life? I need more of you, and I can't get enough of you, and I'm going to dream about you tonight. Nailed it.
Whew. That's strong words, but I kind of agree, honestly. It's fantastic. It's straight up like they took key lime pie, they like ground it up, and they just slapped it and put it into this beer. It tastes like you get graham cracker, you get the key lime. It's a little bit tart. It's not too tart. It's very sweet. And you know, I wouldn't be able to drink a ton of these, but I mean, it's a dessert beer, and it's nailed. Like they got it spot on.
Yeah, it's fitting that we're doing Kingdom Come with this beer because it makes me want to Gose to heaven.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
And we'll be recasting Ethan's role here at the Oblivion Bar, so make sure you email us at baroblivion@gmail.com.
Send your resume, please. But overall, so we can get back to the story, 9.5 out of 10 retired superheroes.
9.5 retired superheroes.
Only half of a retired superhero there.
Only
at the
half
end.
of one. Okay.
Yeah, they kind of just. I'm gonna leave that alone.
What about you, Robbie? How would you rate this beer?
I'm struggling between 9.5, right around that area. So my only thing is that, like I said, it's very sweet. I couldn't continue to drink this throughout the night, which I don't think is the expectation for the beer. But on my rating scale, it definitely makes it take a hit. So we'll give it a 9 out of 10. What do we want to do here? A 9 out of 10 Batbots, if you will.
Batbots. 9 out of 10 Batbots.
All right, 10 out of 10. Perfect score for me. It does exactly what it sets out to do. It exceeded my expectations, and I already thought I was gonna like it, so it's gotta be really good. I'm gonna say 10 out of 10 gulags.
And you will all find out what a gulag is coming up. But getting back to the story, we see Superman coming out of solitude, and he brings his old super pals together, and they form the Justice League. But we also have Batman working in the shadows, recruiting his own metahumans to his cause, seeing the impending destruction that would happen if Superman came out with his own team. So, which side do you agree with more? Which one is more just in their cause? Superman's side or Batman's side? Who do you think, Ethan?
Okay. This is a tough question. I don't think either are completely right. I think that Superman has the best intentions, but I think he, mostly due to Wonder Woman, is going about it in very much the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Batman's basically just on his normal and so I'd probably side with him because, at least I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, I would definitely have to say that I go with Batman 100% on this because I really feel that Superman is just overcompensating for being absent for 10 years. And now he's trying to, enforce this new moral code on the whole world. And I can't get behind that.
It's tough because, I think the way he's trying to enforce, it's hard to try and enforce a moral code upon the world because it's, it's a subjective way of thinking. Mm-hmm. But, I think his intentions are right, is that at the bottom line, you shouldn't be killing people. You should be worried about the lives of other people because it's, it boils down to civilian casualties and killing the supervillains and killing villains, right? And I think in that regard, I would have to side with Superman for that. But as the general consensus, the way that he's going about this, I don't think it's ideal. The mass incarceration, he's really shoving it down people's throats, and that's not the old Superman way. And also, Batman's the one who's actually been around this whole time. So I think part of me is well, Batman didn't leave. You left Superman. Batman would probably have a better idea of what's going to be better for humanity.
Yeah, and I think since we're already talking about Superman and Batman, we've always known them to have such a close relationship. What do you think of how their relationship is depicted here in this story after Superman visits Batman in his Batcave?
That was a fun scene.
Yeah.
Batman was just straight up roast. He didn't quit. To me, it definitely seemed kind of similar to their normal relationship. Batman definitely dropped some filters. And Superman was more not accepting of another viewpoint. So the way that I see it is the relationship did change, but that's because they changed as individuals.
Yeah, I think you're right. And like that kind of bottom structure is kind of still there, but I think Batman at the end of the day like lost respect for Superman when he disappeared, and it like probably lost some filters in his old age. I think that tends to happen with a lot of people. People start saying like, "Hey, like as I got older, I just stopped caring what other people think." So yeah, he just straight up dropped bombs on Superman. It's just like, oh, you really know like a lot about hiding, wouldn't you, Clark? Like, so yeah, I mean, it was a fun scene. And I think it's depicted very well.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts, Ethan?
I also enjoyed the scene quite a bit. I think that it is an accurate depiction of what their relationship would be like if this had happened. I think it was a good, well thought out scene. My favorite part was that Bruce refused to not call Superman Clark, even though he has obviously given up on that name. It's like Superman is trying to further himself from his identity as a human because he feels betrayed by them from when he was cast aside. And Bruce is constantly sort of trying to remind him of that because that is what sort of grounds him. And I think that's sort of what he's trying to get at in his own crotchety old man sort of way.
Yeah. No, what really stood out to me is that we're looking at a Batman who doesn't really have faith in Superman. And I felt like that was a huge part of their relationship, at least on Batman's side of things. Like, I felt like Batman could be Batman because he believed that in the end, Superman's gonna make those right decisions. And now that he sees Superman didn't make those right decisions for so many years, I feel like that conversation in Batcave really shows that he's another person that doesn't have faith in Superman, which I think what comes next really shows, because something unexpected happens in this book where we're introduced to a team of villains going by the Human Liberation Front. No, the Mankind Liberation Front.
Yeah, the MLF.
Yeah. The MLF. The MILF.
You had to do it. You had to do it.
But you have the MLF led by Lex Luthor. And who comes to team up with him? Batman. And I was just like, what? Batman, what? You're teaming up with Lex? What did you guys think of that? Like,
it was at that moment, I'm just going to be real honest, it was at that moment that I really saw Batman kind of like a Darth Vader character. Because of the
exoskeleton.
The exoskeleton,
like
and it had
collar.
2 pieces that stuck out like this. Like right at the bottom where the triangle is on Darth Vader. Like it just, everything just screamed Darth Vader. And I was like, you son of a...
I don't know. I didn't know whether I could trust the relationship because I feel this was Batman 10 years ago. You'd be like, oh, he's just conning Luthor. Like, duh, that's easy. But now after this, you're like, well, maybe has he changed? Has he been pushed to the point where he actually needs to team up with Luthor? And I didn't know. I mean, I'd like to hope it's a double cross, but I mean, I think at this point in the story, it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, you know something's messed up when Edward Nygma is speaking more truth than Batman. He's here only because he's the guest of Selena Kyle. They make that very clear. And he is belittling Lex at every turn, and here Batman is shaking his hand.
Yeah.
Riddle me this.
Ooh.
I think it really shows just how bad of a state the world is in. Because if Batman has to resort to teaming up with the likes of Lex Luthor, along with all these other villains like the son of Ra's al Ghul and the Riddler and Catwoman and all these other villains, yes, I would hope that eventually there'll be this double cross and, he comes out on the brighter side of things. But I really think it just shows you like, yo, we have a renegade Superman with a super army, and they are just taking matters into their own hands, and we got to be ready. If we want mankind to survive this, we got to be ready. So I think they're just gearing up for the impending Armageddon, which is really cool. This book also includes a lot of, just DC lore and mythos, bringing in characters that we're familiar with, but not in the same way that we're familiar with them. So who are you excited to see in this story? Personally, I really loved when Aquaman popped on the scene because Superman and Wonder Woman go down to Atlantis asking for his support. And he's like, I run the whole ocean. Yeah, that's like 70% of the world. Y'all go handle your land crap. Leave me alone and let me run my kingdom. I ain't got time for this. I'm too grown for this. And I was like, yes, Aquaman.
I ain't gonna be your gulag.
I personally really like The Flash. And I also thought the art was really fitting for him because he didn't stop. Just like they were saying, he didn't stop solving crimes. He didn't stop helping people. He was running around 24/7 being the security system, basically. He's just sitting there like vibrating really fast. He's like, I need to do something. I need to do something.
Yeah.
It's like me when I've had like 4 cups of coffee, like
10 a.m.
I love Orion's little cameo, I guess is what you'd call it in this. It's not long, but you see him, the son of Darkseid who was raised by the new gods. He comes back to take over and he works his darndest to make it a good place, to make everyone happy, to free everyone. And he can't because he realizes it wasn't Darkseid that made this place evil. It was everyone else. And you sort of see a parallel there with Earth, which is going through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really have like a particular story I fell in love with, but Green Lantern and his sick armor and his giant bastion in the sky, like that was freaking awesome. I
really
love
impressed.
that.
Yeah, that was such beautiful art. Like showing his space base just, on patrol, waiting for some extraterrestrial force to come in and be a threat. But speaking of how beautiful that art was, this book is drawn by, in my opinion, the best comic book artist there is, Alex Ross. So what did you guys think of this art? Reading a book that was written years ago, how does it hold up today?
I don't want to say it was the best part of the book just because I really like the story, but it's hard not to say it's not the best part of the book because it's so incredible. It's so good. Every page is the detail, like the coloring, the shading, it's incredible. And I'm saying incredible a lot because that's exactly what it is.
It's incredible.
It reminded me kind of like when you stare at an oil on canvas or something like that, and you're just like, the way the shading is and everything, just like you can tell where the light is, you can tell where everything is, you can tell the depth, you can tell the textures. Like they nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite one was that first page, though, when you first start reading the story with the bald eagle versus the bat.
Yeah.
And just the metaphor that you can pick up between the two for the rest of the story. When you start to read it, you're just like, oh my God, it was a good page.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can't be understated how good the art is. It really can't. It's incredible. I mean, this is one of those books where if someone came up to you and was like, hey man, comics are dumb. They're for kids. They're not a real art form. I would pick this book up. I'd be like, come back to me in a couple hours. That would be the end of the conversation.
Period. It's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree. I mean, this is a book drawn by an artist who you can't put him with everything because not everything requires such a high level of art. But when it comes to writing, something that is going to be a big, in-depth, iconic story, you got to go for Alex Ross. It is going to be a hit. But that's going to wrap up today's episode. This is going to be part 1 of 2. So join us again next week when we cover the second half of this series. And we want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, Rock House Brewing, for sponsoring us with such amazing beer. You guys are awesome. And you can find the links to their social media and their website in the description below, along with where you can buy this book and our social media at Bar Oblivion. Question of the week. Which side would you be on in this war? Batman's or Superman's? Leave your answers in the comments below, and we will catch you guys next time at the Oblivion Battle.
A large fresh orange juice, please.